Alycia Anderson. I am a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility motivational speaker, advocate. I consult corporate America, companies and businesses on inclusion in the workplace of people with disabilities and accessibility. I am running my own business doing such. So that's sort of what I'm doing. I've got a master's degree in adapted physical activity from a university in Belgium. I've worked for the Paralympic Committee. I've been involved in disability sports science really my entire life. I was born with my disability. I live my life from a wheelchair. My disability is called sacral agenesis. And I've been on a sort of a lifelong journey of inclusion way before it was this thing that we're chasing for actively today. So I just share my journey with companies and organizations on the importance and the empowerment of what people with disabilities can bring to the workforce and to society. I just did a TEDx talk called Disabling Ableism, the Modern Pathway to Inclusion, where I really dive into ableism and talk about the theory of disabling it, turning it off, and this being our modern pathway to the inclusion of people with disabilities in our society today. Ableism is a discrimination or a social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. And ableism is so ingrained in our society, we often don't know it's there. It's really the lens that we look at disability through in our society. It's the things that perpetuate, discrimination, marginalization, and stigmas that are attached to disability. And so I came up with this concept of finding a way to disabling it, literally flipping the switch off in our minds as to what we believe is possible or frankly impossible for people living with disabilities. And by eliminating that thought process in our lives, it allows us to start believing in possibility first of everyone. Instead of us automatically going to the can'ts, we won't, I won't hire, I won't befriend, I won't love, all of those things that kind of have come along with the exclusion of people with disabilities in our society in the past. So and I kind of tell the story personally through my lifetime of how I've kind of dealt with this ableism word and how I've been trying to turn it off. So That's basically what it's about. It's on YouTube, so go check it out. I think one of the biggest challenges is in web and digital accessibility is companies even understanding what web accessibility is. Although most people, I believe, are aware of the general concepts of accessibility in our world, meaning ramps, wider doors, larger restrooms, those types of things. Accessibility from a web aspect requires, in my opinion, a little bit more imagination. And this is due to it being ingrained, the ingrained ableism of the sighted, and the fact that the customer is not being seen by a human by way of your eyes. And in this, I believe that, like when customers are using these tools, your website's brain is not able to say like, oh, this person is blind, this person has mobility issues and is able to attack it that way. And so generally people that are building websites and people that are approving content, the majority don't have a disability. And so it's easy to overlook the needs of accessibility on a web page. And because the customer is not right in front of you, there's no way to pinpoint the exact adaptations that a customer is going to need unless they have the foresight to think of these things in advance. So like from, a broader perspective, we need to be asking questions like, how would my webpage behave for somebody that's blind? What strategies do I need to incorporate to the design of my webpage to help with people that might have mobility issues or can't use their hands or their fingers. And this is a really good starting point, in my opinion. And then finding ways to incorporate a richer web experience through proper implementation of accessibility techniques to give that much richer experience to the end user. And this could benefit all of us. Like, imagine going to a web page and not having to grab for your glasses, or being able to dictate something into a microphone instead of having to fill out a form. And so I'm guessing like the new wave of technology in our future might eliminate cumbersome keyboards and smart pens and, you know, switching back and forth and pinching screens and things like that altogether. And there's going to be some organizations that are still trying to like catch up with these technologies and may not see the advantages right away that are inherent to implementing some of these tools. But it enriches all of our websites, all of the business that we're sort of putting out there in space by positioning these tools in the market, and really elevates businesses all around. Websites are a public domain and they should fall under ADA. Whether you're opening a business doors to the internet or you're opening the storefront, same thing. And, you know, as commerce and consumerism continues to move to the majority of sales online, we have to account for the fact that the internet enables people with disabilities to access goods and services, and it's a freedom, and it frees them from facing a multitude of other challenges like transportation and weather and infrastructure and environmental obstacles. And these things on top of those, like dealing with medical supplies, and there's all kinds of other challenges that people with disabilities need to think about when they're going to buy something at a store. And so technology lightens the load in so many aspects. So yes, public accommodation per the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title III, should provide 100% access via technology. This should be prioritized at the highest on the list, along with all of the other physical accessibility accommodations that are granted through this legislation. And accessibility through technology is literally essential for all of us, but definitely for people with disabilities to access the world and goods and to have some freedoms, honestly. And so this really gives people with disabilities the freedom and independence rather than isolation and exclusion. So I'm very excited about it too. And I love that these conversations are happening. Honestly, we need more people with disabilities, you know, working in government to push these types of legislation through. And so the one specifically in Illinois definitely stands true to Section 508 Rehabilitation Act that guarantees access to technologies and information and data for people with disabilities, is especially in schools, all of it. And the legislation that was passed by David Ortiz, all of that mandated in Colorado to have web accessibility across the board accessible by 2024. This is amazing. Like, this is movement. This is signs that there's going to be more to come within the disability rights movement, within technology, which is amazing. And, you know, like, again, it's going to improve the lives of people with disabilities to have access to accessible technology. And, you know, people with disabilities, like, we cross all boundaries of the diversity, equity, inclusion spectrums. And so holding a place where, you know, historically we might be disadvantaged on so many levels, to have some of these legislations start to be put into law. It's just promoting, better equality in life, and it's really, really good. So, inclusion recognizes these things for all of us, and we should all have access individually by will, and if not, by law. We're just having these conversations now in our society that they're layered a little bit more beautifully, and they're inclusive, and we're talking more about the human and not just the laws. And it's, for me, like, I just feel like we're having the dots connect a little bit more from a human to human standpoint, where we're wanting to do the right thing for the right reasons, more than just following the check off the box laws that are required. So please just start, because anybody that's a business owner who's putting data out there on the internet needs to start thinking about these things. But one of the easiest ways, I believe, to implement greater accessibility to end users on the web is to realize the importance of things like images along the way, and not hiding content, and using tools like alternate text, and alt and image tags and things like that, that are going to offer not only people with visual impairments a richer experience, but also, again, a lot of these tools make for universal design the path of least resistance for all of us. And these are simple tools that are in most content management systems that people can access, on WordPress and Wix and all of those things. And I think understanding some of the tools that are at our fingertips, the companies that are out there to consult on these things, that are going to really start to help with pushing these things forward. And so, yeah, that would be my recommendation. The conversations that we're starting to have now with companies of, looking at accessibility at the forefront of design and development, depending on, no matter what the product is, technology or not, even infrastructure or whatever, if we're looking at that at the forefront of development instead of an afterthought, we're really leveraging product development to be intuitive, and that whole path of least resistant, and what, the general public, with have a disability or not, are choosing, like texting and Siri and all these really amazing technologies and tools that we use every day that we choose, that came from accessibility design. So I think shifting that again into that in like a positive light of leveraging your company in a more in a way that the consumer is going to choose, because it makes more sense and it's easier, I think is really important for businesses to think as well. I mean, we're seeing left and right the last 2 years, every single solitary company, it feels like, is, on this mad rush to create diversity, equity, inclusion departments, and like put resources and teams to really focus on that. And I think there's going to be a multitude of positions, like, for instance, web accessibility specialists. Like, that should be, if you've got a software company, you've got a website, you have technology, that should be a position and department that is always there, just like these DE&I departments are, that like have expertise in, Section 508 and the Rehabilitation Act, and all these compliance pieces that are required to follow with just accessibility within websites and technology, that are going to know legal standards and, screen readers and magnifiers and voice recognition and all of these amazing tools that are out there to make sure that companies are compliant. So I think we're going to see a big push, like we did in the DE&I departments, Same with accessibility departments, where there's experts in several different layers, like a web accessibility specialist that's going to really arm companies with the, the tools that they need to be fully compliant, and also create really awesome products, because you've got these experts helping with the design and the coaching. So I think the big thing is and it kind of goes again from to talk about like that piece of hiding content. I think it's important to move away from that whole, carousel and hiding data, and understanding that like big companies like technology innovation, like MIT website, Apple, like if you go to all of their websites, they're making their websites very accessible for everyone. They're not hiding those pieces of content, which gets confusing for people with disabilities. And so I think that that's an important mention. And, it's this fight for inclusion, and it's all about humanity and online accessibility for people with disabilities, and everyone that is really expanding these technology opportunities and requirements. And, I also think we need to be hiring people with disabilities within organizations to be the expert, to give the right suggestions, to give some creativity and innovation and imagination to really help these advancements probably further more quickly. So I think there's just a lot of work to do with like tapping into those resources as well. Yeah, I think we're in a really exciting time where we're going to start seeing a lot of that. It's the same thing with the DE&I. Like now there's degrees, and there's these job VP of diversity and equity and inclusion at Abercrombie and Fitch. Like how 2 years ago, like that was not this like rush to have these departments and these extra expertise. So I absolutely can already see there being degrees at university for accessibility design specifically. And I think it's just about to we're about to get into a really exciting time. It's awesome. I cannot believe that I'm seeing this stuff in my lifetime. It's really like personally fun and exciting. And there's a lot to do, but a lot of work to still, like accomplish, but we're definitely moving. So it's good. It's really good.